Hey hey, hello anh em. Có một cái bạn góp ý với mình đó là khi mà làm các cái video về kỹ thuật á, thì hạn chế mình pha các cái chữ tiếng Anh tiếng Việt vô. Thì thực ra mình cũng có một cái tâm lý rất là giống các bạn đó. Mình là chú ghét những cái người mà nói chuyện cứ hay pha tiếng Anh á, kiểu Việt không ra Việt, Tây không ra Tây, cứ nửa vời cố gắng là thể hiện là mình biết nhiều, nhưng mà thực tế những cái chữ có thể sử dụng tiếng Việt được á, mà cứ hay tiếng Anh. Thì nếu mà anh em mà theo dõi cái mới hết đất 100 cái mệt quá. Nếu mà anh em theo dõi cái video của mình á, thì anh em sẽ thấy có một số chỗ á, mình ngừng lại, mình không có nói, tại vì có một số chỗ mà mình tính là xài tiếng Anh rồi, nhưng mà mình phải ngừng lại, mình suy nghĩ là cái chữ đó tiếng Việt nó là cái gì để mình nói. Do đó cái video nó bị không có, mình nói nó không có được trôi chảy á, thì cái đó nó cũng là một cái không hay. Thì mình cũng cố gắng rồi. Thì thực ra nếu mà anh em nói là nếu mà thà tiếng Anh thì tiếng Anh luôn đi, thì mình cũng có rất là nhiều cái video mà mình làm bằng tiếng Anh á, để mình training hoặc là các cái buổi mà one on one với lại dự án, nhưng mà cũng khá là khó chia sẻ. Tại vì thứ nhất là nó liên quan tới cái thông tin của dự án, các cái spec ở trong đó. Cái thứ hai nữa là mình phải xin phép người ta cho rồi thì mình mới được up. Thì hồi xưa mình cũng định làm một cái kênh bằng tiếng Anh, mình có làm rồi, mình có up một cái vài video rồi, nhưng mà nó hơi khoai để mà duy trì hai cái kênh tiếng Việt tên tiếng Anh thì nó cũng mất rất là nhiều thời gian đó. Và làm video, mỗi lần làm hai cái video, hai phiên bản tiếng Việt tiếng Anh thì mất rất nhiều thời gian. Mình thì vẫn muốn là ưu tiên những cái anh em ở Việt Nam hơn. Ok, nếu mà mình gần đây mình cũng có làm một cái buổi training, nó là internal training cho cái dự án của mình. Thì dự án của mình thì nó khoảng 50 người, trong đó là khoảng 30 dev. Ngoài ra thì có cái bộ phận khác như là các cái bộ phận marketing hay là BD hay là KOL các thứ. Thì mình có làm một cái buổi training, thì mình sẽ share cái buổi training này với anh em, tại vì mình nghĩ khá là vừa sức. Training cho các anh em không phải là anh em dev mà, nếu mà training cho dev thì mình sẽ nói rất là sâu về kỹ thuật. Thì sợ là tiếng Anh nữa thì sợ là anh em theo không kịp. Thì mình có làm một cái training, mình chia sẻ về các framework để hỗ trợ AI Agent, đặc biệt là Coinbase. Thì này cũng thấy mình làm á, mình thì mình muốn chia sẻ cho những cái anh em dev Việt Nam thôi. Mình đi training cho người ta, thì những cái công ty đó, những cái dự án đó, người ta biết là cái gì đang trending, tại vì người ta có cái bộ phận research luôn. Người ta biết được là cái gì có khả năng cao sẽ trending và cái gì có khả năng là dòng tiền sẽ đổ vào đó, thì người ta sẽ nhảy vô, người ta sẽ đặt cái này là bây giờ ví dụ như mình tính nói là positioning themselves ở trong cái thị trường đó, thì mình cái diễn tả bằng tiếng Việt cũng khá là khó đó. Thì người ta sẽ đặt người ta ở trong cái môi trường đó để người ta có cái khả năng cao là người ta đón đầu được cái dòng tiền sẽ đổ vô. Thì cái Coinbase mà cái video trước á, mình ra đó, thì người ta thuê mình để làm cái chuyện đó. Thì ngoài cái chuyện mà Coinbase ra thì mình còn share một số cái nữa, nó liên quan tới các cái framework khác để hỗ trợ cho cái chuyện mà build AI agent. Thì đây là một cái video vậy. Thì tất nhiên là mình đã được người ta cho phép rồi, mình sẽ up lên. Ok, thì sau đây là cái video của mình nhé. Hey anh em, mình là QuanIT và trên kênh của mình chuyên chia sẻ các vấn đề liên quan tới công nghệ, đặc biệt là công nghệ AI và blockchain. Okay, so Igor is here and I think everybody is here and I can start the session. Just the whole world watching. Okay, so you guys see my screen? Okay, so the original idea of this session is we want to walk through the Coinbase development platform, which is the CDP, and their Coinbase Agent Kit, which is a developer kit for user to create AI agents and create wallets for these agents. But I think since we rarely have these sessions, I will also walk you through a bunch of other frameworks which contains a Langchain and MCP from Anthropic, OpenAI from an agent kit from OpenAI, Eliza, which is a framework that we're already using for framework, and then also Vercel AI kit. So this session is going to be about AI agents, about Coinbase agent kit, and about a bunch of other kit for building AI agents. So because most of you is not technical guys, so I'm gonna try to use words that is the least technical as possible. And from the last sessions, we talk about AI. So nowadays, when we talk about AI with OpenAI, with ChatGPT, with Claude, with DeepSeek, with all the model, we are actually not talking about AI, but we are actually talking about LLMs. It is large language models. And these LLMs, if I have to describe these LLM in a very short terms, it's going to be predict the next token. So when you have a neural network and then you train it with a bunch of data, it's going to calibrate the weights of the neural network, and it will define when you activate a node, and therefore it made the decisions. And the way that these LLM works is predict the next token. For example, when I'm training the LLMs with this is a dog and the dog has 4 legs. So when I type this, it's going to predict the next word is and then a dog, and then when I type the dog, it's going to predict the next token. So that is the core concept of behind all these LLMs. And the big problem with this design is that it cannot access to external resources. So why do LLM need external resources? For example, I can ask a question, what is the situation with my company? Of course, ChatGPT cannot answer these questions because it doesn't know what is your company, what is the resources of your company, what is the financial state, how much money do you have in the bank, blah, 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 blah. Or I can add, what is my health status? It cannot answer because it doesn't know what is the matrix about my health yesterday and the day after that, and what is my heartbeat right now, for example. Or I can ask him to can you book the same hotel that I was in last week? And the LLM cannot answer this question. Or can you summarize my download folder? LLM cannot answer because they do not have access to these resources. For example, the last question, when I ask these questions, the LLM don't have access to my download folder on my computer. Therefore, it cannot answer the questions. That is why they come up with an approach called tools, and it come up with the concept of AI agents. So AI agents are LLMs and tools which help the LLM can perform a specific actions, or which gives the LLM the access to external resources. And of course, then we come up with multiple agent system where agents can work with other agents, or can work with human, and can work with other tools and platforms as well. So that is from my last sessions about AI 1.0 and 2.0, and actually I already provided sessions on a AMA of rivals, and it's just a brief summarize of the last sessions. So let me dive into this. And because we have AI agents, LLM and tools, every big player in the field are trying to provide a framework for us to build all these LLMs and tools and agents, and each framework is going to have a different approach, and we're going to dive deep into every platform in the next session. Okay, Coinbase and CDP. Let me click here. So the original idea of this session is I'm gonna go to explain the AI agent kit from Coinbase, the way how they create the wallet for Coinbase, because the narrative of this framework is that every AI deserves a crypto wallet. So what does this agent do? When you create a AI agent, it automatically have a wallet, and it will automatically have a account abstraction wallet, because Coinbase they have the API wallet because they are a centralized exchange. So they already come up with reference docs. So Wallet API is another product from Coinbase, and they already have this API. So the way that they integrate it into an AI agent and create a framework for other developers to do that as well. So if I click here, this is some just for you to reference. So they have the Wallet API, and there's a bunch of developer managed, and they have MPC wallet. This is not MCP, but MPC wallet, and they have a bunch of solution for payment and for agent kits as well. But in this session, we just dive deep into the agent kit. Okay. So CDP is not just the agent kit, but they have a bunch of on-chain tools, and if you want to dive deeper into that, you can go to their documentations, and you're gonna find out a bunch of tools, including faucet, bridging, swapping from USDC, on-ramp, off-ramp, where you can actually make payment with Coinbase, and lots and lots of services. And the interesting thing about this framework is that the integrations. So if you read the documentations here, and you go to action framework, and you go to their integrations, and you go here, they have like 1, 2, 3 parts talking about integrations. So they integrate with a bunch of other platforms like Langchain, like Agent SDK from OpenAI, like Eliza, like Vercel, like MCP from Anthropic. And this is very interesting to think about, is that whenever some big player, they come into the field and they provide a framework, it always compatible with other big platform. And Coinbase is just the same scenario. When they release a framework, it also support all of these 5 different frameworks. So these are some very big one and some very interesting one. So but the goal, so what are all these frameworks trying to accomplish? The goal of all these frameworks is they want to create a standardized ways for LLMs to call the tools, and via these tools the LLMs gonna have access to different resources. So just imagine that back in the 90s when we have internet, everybody want to standardize the internet. They come up with a bunch of different protocol, and then after all these big boom, we come up with TCP/IP. So now all computer communicates with each other via TCP/IP, and we started like we use it and we just don't care. what protocol we use. So all these platforms, they want to standardize the way that LLMs communicate with the outside world, just like the TCP/IP did with the internet. Or another example of standardized communication, you can think about RESTful API, where you have, when you try to call an API, you have all these different methods, like the get methods, the post method, the put methods, and then you send a JSON file with a header and with a body, and then when the API server receives that request, it's going to understand the request and will understand what data to give back to the request, and that is the RESTful API. So that becomes a standard. So all these 5 players, they are trying to come up with a standard for LLMs calling tools, but with different approaches. This is Coinbase. Actually, let me dive deep into all these 5 first, because they are really big player. I think from the AI agent point of view, maybe they're bigger than Coinbase, the main player for today. And actually, let me skip to the extra, and I'm gonna go to Langchain. So Langchain is a one of the first player in the AI agent framework fields, alongside with Llama Index or a bunch of other platforms. So let me go to Langchain. Okay. So for Langchain, they have 3 products. They have Langchain, LangSmith, and LangGraph. So with Langchain, it supports a bunch of interfaces and a bunch of tools and a bunch of pre-built objects that you can use to create tools and communications between AI agents and LLMs, between LLMs and tools and LLM and other resources. LangGraph is a more complicated version of Langchain, where you can build something quite similar to ADCS, what we're trying to build, or Vault, where you can have nodes, and each nodes can be an LLM, can be an agent, can be a tool, can be some edge nodes, or some state management, and blah blah blah. So LangGraph is the framework that I use the most, and LangSmith is just LangGraph, but it is at an enterprise level. So if you dive to LangGraph, you can see the approach, how they build this graph. So they go to concept. Nope. This is. So if you set it up, pip install LangGraph and LangSmith, Anthropic. I am trying to find here. So you can build something like this. So this is the most simple approach and the most simple graph. You can have start, and the start go to the chatbot, and then it ends. So this is an example of a graph. And you can go a little bit more complicated. Like this. So we have start, and we have a chatbot, and then the chatbot cannot answer some question, but have to connect some kind of extra resources. The chatbot call a tool, and then the tool return the result to the chatbot, and then the chatbot have the answer, and then give back the answer and the end. So imagine this is a very simple example of a LangGraph, but imagine you can have like 1,000 different tools, or you can have human in the loops. You can have extra nodes that contains more business logic in there, and you can go really crazy with LangGraph. And with all these 5 platforms, it deserves a separate sessions if we talk about this, because they're one of the biggest player in the field. So that is Langchain. And let me go through. So Langchain is an early adopter of the AI agent world and really rich resources. the amount of documentations, the amount of integrations is just insane. All kind of vector database, ChromaDB, AstraDB, data stacks, and so they did like all lots of integrations. And another, is there anything I want to talk about Langchain? I think that's enough. Okay. And another popular framework for building these agents is MCP from Anthropic. And actually this is my favorite one because it is really straightforward and everything just makes sense. So if you go to the link here, you can read about the MCP server. So how do they allow LLMs to connect to extra resources? This is how. If you go to LangGraph, I just took a general architecture and the overview architecture. So the approach is MCP client, MCP server, and resources. So this one is really straightforward, right? So we have an MCP client, and then you have an MCP server communicates with each other via the MCP protocol, or they call it here the transport layer. So you have all the AI here. Let me give an example. Let's get back to the example that actually comes from Anthropic. Okay, so with this example, can you summarize my download folder? So in this case, the LLM doesn't have the access to my downloads folder. So how can MCP allow an LLM to read my download folder? So you come back here, you install an MCP client on your computer, and then there's an MCP server, and then there's going to be local data sources. So with an MCP client and with an MCP server runs on your computer, you can read the downloads folder inside your computer. That is local data source. And with external data sources, you can create an MCP servers that have access to web API, therefore go to the internet and just scrape anything. So this is going to be wired because there's going to be any kinds of APIs to grab the data, or you can even build your own APIs. So the use case is the possibility is a lot. And with the overview, so they explain more from the architecture. So you have the host, where it is LLM applications, example like Claude desktop, where you have Claude inside the Claude desktop and initiate the connections. You have the client, and in this case, the client always maintain a one-on-one connection with the server. So if you have one client, it will always communicate with one MCP server. So you have the host and the server. So this approach is really straightforward. So I think that is why MCP is getting a lot of traction. If you go to this website, you go to MCP market, you click here, you can see all kind of MCP server that is already built. So you have file crawl that enable LLM to do web scraping, you have Cloudflare, you have browser base, you have Exa, and all kind of MCP server. So via these MCP server, these LLMs will have access to all these resources.
Say you're running an MCP client, right? You need to host these servers, right? Or you can use some virtual servers, right? To access them. Right? So some people are running them, right? Plus, you need to provide the API keys, right? Usually, these service providers that offer the MCP servers, right? They ask for those API keys, right? Is that process similar to Langchain, or with Langchain it's easier, more built in? Because like this, on the MCP side, it feels like it relies a lot on your self-hosting servers and Docker images of these MCP servers, etc., etc.
With MCP server, in some cases, you're gonna have you're gonna need an API key, and with this can be with MCP server, MCP client. Okay, and so the next big agent SDK is the OpenAI SDK. So if you want to read about it, you can go to this link and you can see the OpenAI Agents SDK. So this is also a way to give LLM access to resources, but the approach is different. So how is this platform approach? They approach via some components that they name agents, hands-off, guardrails, and tracing. And I click here. Oops, oh, this is the OpenAI. So they define agents are LLMs equipped with instruction and tool. Hands-off allows agents to delegate to other agents, and guardrails, which enable the input and output of the agents to be validated. So they just come up with a different approach and different components, different definition on how agents should interact with each other or interact with the tool. And if you go to quick start, you can see some of their example here. And you can validate the input and output of the agent using something called a guardrails. So you see they define the agents, the name is the guardrail check, and then the instruction output type. You can define the output type here. It can be a custom type that's defined by you. And yep. And actually, I'm not a big fan. And also, they provide tracing. So tracing is a very interesting component of these framework, because it allows you to trace the data. So for example, a user input and it go through a bunch of agents, it go through a bunch of tools, maybe it contains human in the loops, and if you want to trace the whole history of how it come back with the final answer, you can actually use tracing to do the tracing of information. And I'm not a big fan of this framework. I rarely use them. Actually, I just looked into them this morning so that I have a better understanding for these sessions. Mostly I go with Langchain and MCP. And if you want to see a bunch of pre-built agents, you can go here. Oops, no, this one in GitHub, and it's better explain all the core components. So with each framework, it will introduce a new concepts that they name all these naming, like tracing, like guardrails, like hands-off, and blah blah blah. And the next big framework that we already used in our is Eliza. So this is also a big framework, and you can find everything about it here. Oops, why the website is dying? Yeah, you can GitHub Docs review. Why I just read it this morning, and in the evening the website is dying. So, but also I think I have something here. So okay, so it is also another framework, but the approach is different. So it introduced agent runtime, and it categorizes all these projects, plugins, task, and action. Also we have action here, and this manages these organizations. It helps you to read the world, it contains the room. Personally, I think this framework is a little bit everywhere, and one of the things that we use and that can accomplish most of the task is the plugins. So back with framework where I use the agent runtime, and we can create different plugins, because these plugins can actually build in a way that it performs different actions, and then it can have access to different resources and also call external APIs through the plugins. So actually with the plugins we can do like a bunch of stuff. But it also introduced some big brain concepts like organizations, core processing with actions, evaluator, provider, task, project, blah blah blah. And if I look into another platform that is supported by the Coinbase framework, is the Vercel AI SDK. So I think personally the Vercel AI SDK is aiming for Vercel user, because they have a very big developer community which is very familiar with their framework like Next.js, like Nest.js. So they utilize their developer community, and they introduce this framework. So it's also a typical framework where they just introduce LLMs, they introduce tools, and inside the tools they have description, parameter, and execution of a tool. Also they introduce schema onto how to define the parameter into the tool and how to call the tool. So to me, it's nothing special about this framework. And if you look into their pre-built toolkit, so they have agentic with a collection of 20+ tools. You have browser-based, you have browserless for web scraping like the Firecrawl, or you have the Stripe agent tool. So this one is quite interesting, where you can give the AI agents the access to Stripe and make payments. So this is a pre-built tool that is already built on top of the platform. So when I look into this platform, this is the toolkit where I already introduced to you. Okay, so when I look into this platform, one of the things that I look into is the pre-built tools that developer already built on top of them. And with that, Langchain and MCP is the MVP, because they are the top player. They've been in the AI agent field for very long time. If you want flexibility and you want a big crowd of integrations, then you should go with Langchain. If you want something simple, you want something like ready to go, just easy to build and integrate, you can go with MCP. So from a technical perspective, all of these tools, they just add another layer of abstractions on some other big frameworks, right? So let me just give you an example. If you use OpenAI API key, you can use that key to call any API endpoints related to OpenAI, but when other player comes, you can actually give a key that is not come from OpenAI, but you can still request the same API endpoints, but it is processed with via another LLMs that comes from another company, because they support each other and everything is compatible. And Coinbase is the same. And also these framework, they already have the names, so they have big developer communities. So they also utilize their developer base to use their platform and build all the tools and all the external resources using their platform. So let's get back to the main character of it, because I just want to introduce the concepts of what are all these platforms trying to accomplish. And now we get back to the main character, which is the Coinbase API. Okay, so let's get back to this. The narrative of Agent Kit is every AI deserves a crypto wallet, which means that when you create an agent with the Agent Kit from Coinbase, every agent gonna have a crypto wallet. And when I tried it in my Mac, sorry, because I was already in the because I already in the I'm on my Windows, but when you run the create agent, it will generate a local file called the wallet data.txt, and inside this wallet.txt you will have two wallets. One account abstraction wallet that works via the wallet API from Coinbase, and the next line is you have the private key of an EOA wallet. So that is their approach on how to create a wallet. And if you create this wallet, let me go here, we go to the docs, okay, and you go to agent quick start here. So if you follow their quick start, they're gonna have CDP Smart Wallet is an account abstraction with advanced feature that is supported by Coinbase. They also support a bunch of different wallets here. And if you go to the way, if you create an actions, an wallet, an AI agent with a wallet, you will default have these three functions. So you can get the wallet detail, you can get the address, you can create, you can transfer the native assets, and you can get the balance of the native assets of that wallet. So inside the chat interface, you can type in the chat, send 10 ETH to this address, and if the wallet of the agents have enough 10 ETH, it will create a it will create a transfer transactions and just transfer the funds. And when you say wallet, is not just about sending and receiving assets, but you can actually use that wallet to sign a transaction, which means that you can have you can interact with whatever smart contracts on whatever chain. But I have not dived deep into this because the AI agents will need to have the smart contract address, also the smart contract ABI, in order to interact with a smart contract on any EVM chain. And also these the agent kit supports all EVM chains and Solana. So if you go to the wallet API, you can see it supports Solana as well. Okay, let's come to the approaches. So how the Coinbase framework let the LLM to interact with tools and external resources. So the approach comes from action provider, actions, and organizations. So these are categorized tools. So if you create an organizations, inside the organizations you can create multiple action provider, and each action provider may contain different actions. For example, we are at Rivals. We want to support Uniswap with our platform. We will create a rival organizations, and inside our organization we're going to create a Uniswap action provider, and inside the Uniswap action provider we can create actions like swap, add liquidity, create liquidity, etc. So that is how they organize the stuff. And if we go to framework, I already talked about this. Architecture. Okay, so the architecture, they have a base class called the agent kit core. So this is the main component of the agent. So you can use it like this. You create agent kit, and then you agent kit.from, and then you input the wallet provider, and you can input the action provider. So when you input the action provider, this agent gonna have access to all these actions that these action provider supports, and that is the base framework. And you can use extensions, framework extensions. And if you want to build with Langchain or with any other, they can create like get Langchain tool, and you can input agent kit here, and it will retrieve all the Langchain tools. Wallet provider, you can use wallet API from Coinbase. So this is the default options. When you create an AI agent, it will automatically create a wallet, and you can handle addresses. And with action provider, this is the I already explained. And organization. So for example, actions /CDP /DeFi or /social or something else. And they also host an agent. This one is, you can host it anywhere with cloud hosting, with Autonom, with NearAI, AI tooling. Some of the interesting thing about this documentation is they already provide a Replit repo for you to play around with. So if you already have a Replit account, you can go to Replit and you can insert all the keys that is asked for, and you can scale it up and run an AI agent right away. I also have cursor. Okay, let me check if there anything else special about this one. Wallet management, I already talked about it. Architecture, I already talked about it. And they have hackathons. So if we build on top of them, for example, if we are building on top of their framework, we can apply for the hackathon about $20,000 for each. If I remember correctly, they're willing to pay maximum 20K for a successfully merged pull request. And if you look into the requests and actions that already built with them, you can go here. So we have a bunch of action provider like Alchemy, Aurora, Basename, Compound, DeFi Llama, and ERC20, ERC721, Farcaster, Jupiter, a bunch of action provider. So inside these action provider like OpenSea, so if you go to an action provider, you can see the list of actions, and you go here, you can see the list of actions that you can perform with OpenSea, and a bunch of configurations. Also the prompt, like, so you see action like list NFT, and get NFTs by account, or yeah. So this is just some basic functions to interact with OpenSea. So if the AI agent is created with this platform and then implemented correctly, the AI agents can interact with OpenSea. And also they already have pre-built wallet provider. So not only you can choose your own wallet provider, you don't have to use the CDP wallet. So they also have EVM wallet provider, right? So you can go here and you see class EVM wallet provider, and they are gonna have an abstract function like sign the message. So you just inherit from this function and you implement your own logic here, and that way you can support your custom wallet. And docs, and here I already talked about this. These are the SDK. Okay, I think I've finished the presentations. If you guys have anything to discuss or any topics, questions, please you can ask me.